Greetings and welcome to the Dream Syndicate. In today's video, we're painting a fantasy creature head as we work on the Brambling. If you want to join me in making the imaginary reality, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Our Brambling head's all sculpted and ready to be painted, so I'm laying down this medium brown all over it to give me a base tone to work off of. This base coat is a raw umber straight from the tube. I'm being really cautious to try and not get any of the pigment on the resin eyes, but that's likely to happen anyway, and I'll just have to clean it up later. As predicted, there's a little bit of paint on the eye, so I have to use my wet brush here, and then a little piece of paper towel, and I can dab away that little mistake. Okay, we have the base coating all done on the head, and next we'll start on the hands and the feet. Now I'm going to use this sort of duller grayed out tone on our fantasy creature. I'm using a sort of lighter greener color on the palms of the hands, and I'm also going to do that on the bottom of the feet. The nice thing about applying an undertone is in areas where I apply the overtone paint thinner, you can actually see some of that brown showing through, which is a nice effect. Here I'm starting to create a bit of a shadow under the eyebrow with this darker color. A human face has zones that tend to stand out, like the cheeks or the nose or the forehead, so I'm trying to imply the same thing with our little Brambling fantasy creature here. The inside of a human or even a creature's ear is going to get less direct sunlight, so that's also likely to be a lot lighter. Now I'm going to lighten up around our art doll's eye orbitals. If you aren't familiar with the term eye orbitals, don't worry, it's just a fancy way of saying the bones around your eye. I want to give this art doll head a bit of visual interest and kind of use a fun color, so I'm using this sort of off purple tone, which will coordinate with the brown well. Here we'll give the upper eyelid a bit of a visual punch. The upper eyelid's usually darker than the lower one, but they're usually a related color to one another. I'm actually painting this a little lighter than I ultimately intended to be because I'm going to go over it all with a dark brown ink wash, and that'll make everything a lot more dark and unified. Since bramblings are hard to observe in their natural habitat, I brought in a piece of wood to use as reference. So I was looking at that while I was painting, and you have this idea that a tree is just a brown color like a brown crayon, but in reality it's a lot more subtle and dull. In a way, it's closer to a gray tone with a hint of brown to it. When I paint characters' heads, it's usually a process of using these garish colors on various areas of the face, and then I start to tone it down and make everything harmonize a little better as I progress in the painting. Here I'm lightly brushing on some brown to create some variation on the sculpture. I do something similar with this dull green tone. Now I'm taking a very watery wash and putting it over top of the ears and other lighter parts of the face like the eye orbital. Next, I'm going to mix some dark brown ink with some water and create a wash and try to bring up some of the lines of the bark-like skin that I carved into the character. When you're painting in an ink wash, expect it to get on your hands and also around the surface where you're working. You want to let the ink set for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then gently wipe it away with something like a moist paper towel or a Q-tip and kind of wipe across the surface, not with the line or the grain that you've actually trying to apply it to. With the size of the sculpture that I'm trying to use this technique with, I had to apply the washes in sections. With other art dial builds, I might be a little more anxious about getting anything on the clothes, but with this character, I kind of wanted his clothes to be spattered and dirty and scruffy anyway, so if any ink dotted onto the clothes, I actually thought I might enhance it. Now I'm going to go back and highlight the eye sockets again with a bit of that purple, since that brown ink wash really took the color out of it. Similarly, I'll re-establish some of those tones on the eyelids as well. Now let's give our little woodland face sprite some pearly white teeth. To finish our creature off, I'm going to take some of these silk flowers that I got from an art supply store and use them to attach to the edge of the branches. I'll just remove this little backing piece here and make a little slit with an exacto knife on the base of the stem. If I were being safety first, I would do this directly on top of my cutting mat instead of doing it with my hands in the air. Putting a little Fabri-Tac inside that stem, and then I can push it in with a little scrap of wire that I have. Sometimes it's handy to keep around little odds and ends of things so you can use them like that. Here we'll just press on these 3 flowers onto the branches. And here we have our finished fey creature, a brambling. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to join me making imaginary reality, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until next time, make believe.